the water muddied by involvement in other areas such as the Democratic Republic of Congo?
Yeah, it's maybe a good opportunity to clarify maybe a whole lot of information that many people don't know, and especially because in this
it's very deep, but maybe we can deal with it briefly, and to do with the involvement in Eastern Congo as seen by Belgium of Rwanda.
Well, no, that is not the point. If you allow me, and as a journalist and as a political analyst, let me eventually inform you.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, Belgium is the colonial power that has been in charge of Rwanda before its independence. And Rwanda was never a colony, actually. It was given by the League of Nations and then the United Nations as a protectorate. So after 1918, because it was first with Germany, and Germany had lost the First World War, well, it was Belgium's role to took over. Now, in this whole period of protectorate, Belgium abused, in fact, the institutions of Rwanda, because Rwanda was a recognized nation state by the League of Nations. And in fact, they planted the root causes, actually, that would bring discrimination into Rwanda. The first, maybe you don't know, but the first refugees on the African continent started to flee from Rwanda during the Belgian rule, 59, 60, 61, 62, and so on. And then, maybe you have heard of that part, but ultimately, that is what brought also the genocide against the Tutsi in 94 in Rwanda.
Albert, if I can interrupt a moment and ask you, was the ethnic classification, the division or distinction between Hutu and Tutsi, a product of Belgian rule, or in fact did it in fact predate Belgian rule and date back to when Rwanda was part of German East Africa?
Banyarwanda is one ethnic group, actually. So Hutu and Tutsi were not ethnicity. So there is only one ethnic group, that is the Banyarwanda. They all speak the same language. They all share the same clans. They all share the same history, the same beliefs before the coming up of Rwanda, of Belgium. Belgium really made those states. But pre-colonial Rwanda was an oral society, non-materialistic. So you can imagine it's like the shock of a clay pot and an iron pot. When they came up, they imposed it, and it became like a kind of a reality. But also because they were only a protectorate, and when they were in fact seeking to get the Belgians out and have independence, that's when in fact the Belgium started to precipitate this ethnicity and having a Hutu movement that were not really asking for independence, but they were labeled as friends of Belgium. So these people have ruled from 1962 up to 1994, 30 years, where there was an apartheid regime in Rwanda under their rule, segregation, and where some of the population, the Tutsi, were in fact second-class citizens. So the 94 Belgium has a hand in what happened then. Rwanda never went after them after 94. Like they didn't go after France immediately, because France also, in fact, armed and supported the genocide regime of that committed the genocide in 94. But Rwanda has been there before, because at a certain point, France came after, in fact, the leadership of Rwanda, and issued some international arrest warrants for the leadership, until Rwanda then cut diplomatic ties with France, only to see France to come back a few years later, knocking on the door at Rwanda and try to settle the things. So that is also what is happening now, because some parts of those genocidaires, they fled, in fact, in 94 under the escort of France then to Zaire, that became Congo later, right? And so Rwanda has been living at the gates of Rwanda, at the northern gates, at the western gates, the eastern gates of Rwanda in Congo, with genocidaire forces who have been roaming there and creating havoc there.
Along
at the other
the
side
border.
of the border, you have another part of when after Berlin, some part of Rwanda came now into Congo. So there you have a population who are called the Banyarwanda, and most of the time people think that it is Rwanda, but these are Congolese. So Congolese who are fighting in Eastern Congo are Banyarwanda as ethnic group, but they're not Rwandese.
No.
So they're fighting for their survive. And of course, there is also the FDLR. So all of this time, the Western powers have, in fact, had no problems to see that the genocidaires were still there. So for Rwanda,
right.
it's about...
And Albert, sorry if I could interrupt you there, because we're very nearly out of time. So what you have is a situation where, in fact, one would have thought that France was far more the object of Rwandan, if you like, anger and opprobrium than Belgium. Belgium, first of all, announcing last month that it was cutting development aid to Rwanda worth 44 million euros in 2022, and now the announcement of severing of ties. Belgium will lose from the severing of ties in terms of trade relations far more than Rwanda will lose from any end of the arrangement. Where do you see this going? Do you see this as the beginning of some kind of domino effect, with similar action being taken by Kigali against, for example, Paris, or indeed beginning to take similar action against Washington?
Not at all. We're not at that point, because, in fact, why Rwanda cut the ties? Because it's not because of the Belgian aid, because that is not that significant anymore. Actually, Rwanda has been growing out of depending on aid for the last 30 years. So it is something that is there, but Rwanda can survive through that, and will find new ways to exactly not to need that. But what Belgium has been doing now in these last days, while the whole crisis in the Eastern Congo has been now taken on by the African organizations like the SADC and the East African Community, who have been organizing a roadmap to restore peace over there. While that was happening, and while all those organizations had, in fact, put on the table that the president of Congo had to dialogue, to negotiate with the rebels in the Eastern Congo, Belgium has now been pushing the European community, to sanction,
impose sanctions on Rwanda.
So those sanctions now that which came from Europe were led actually by Belgium, and it's especially on that, because when Rwanda asks the other partners, they say, why are you doing this? They say, well, Belgium says it. So you see, Belgium
So briefly, Albert Rudatsimburwa, do you expect with this action taken by Kigali that now the pressure for sanctions from the EU will be off Rwanda?
Well, it's not just Rwanda, but it is undermining the African path that had just started, because as a matter of fact, as by today, there were supposed to be negotiations in Angola, in Rwanda, and President Joao Lourenço. But now the people who are supposed to go there have been sanctioned. So it's not just a few personalities from Rwanda. It's also the people from who are supposed to negotiate. So all of this is for Rwanda. Rwanda sees it as a boycott of the African solutions for African problems, and that is Rwanda cannot keep tolerating this attitude, undermining the African way. And all of that,
Albert Rudatsimburwa, I'm afraid we're going to have to end there, because I'm so sorry, but that's all we have time for. Albert Rudatsimburwa, just getting into some very interesting discussions about the African solution to the problem in Congo. But perhaps we can talk about it. Perhaps we can talk about it, or we can have you contribute to the 12 o'clock report and maybe have more on that subject. Thank you very much for joining us on the Asaase Breakfast Show. That was Albert Datsimburwa, formerly of Capital FM, and a seasoned journalist and clearly a very close watcher of international relations. Thanks very much for joining us on the Asaase Breakfast Show.
Thank you very much indeed, Nanaya, for bringing us that interview. It's now time to go. But before we take leave of you, let me just remind you again that the Women in Business Dialogue Series 2025 is currently underway at the Lancaster Kumasi City Hotel. It started around 8 a.m. Now, women entrepreneurs in Ghana face challenges such as finance, technology, and market access. Given their significant contributions to economic growth, there is the need for government support to position them as outstanding brands. Why you have to attend the dialogue, connect and network with top business leaders, gain insight from industry experts, learn how companies empower women SMEs, access business development skills, market and financing. Sponsors, we have EcoBank, GCB Bank PLC, Stanbic Bank, and the AGI, World Vision Ghana, Lancaster Kumasi Hotel, Agri House. Media partners, of course, yours truly, Asaase Radio 99.5 in Accra, Asaase 98.5 in Kumasi, and TV and radio stations in Accra and Kumasi. Well, nearly 5 hours of the day spent on great conversations today on the Asaase Breakfast Show with me, Freight Delanya Megashi. You just heard Nanaya Mengs and, of course, Kwiku as well. Thank you very much. We're back tomorrow at 5:45. Don't forget to join us. For now, continue to enjoy the rest of our programming. Elizabeth Yewai standing by for the news at 10. Don't go anywhere.